Catch me if you can. Yeah, this is why I don't think I would be really good at being a true evil villain. So yeah, Moriarty the Patriot. And this was a while ago. Again, actually no, not that while ago. But still a while since I've watched this. But the reason why I think I hold this a bit... Actually no, I didn't. I think it was just kind of on time. Besides the point. Yeah, I know, does this sound confusing? It does to me as well. Is because I get to talk about this for 10 minutes. Which is good. Because I like this series. I watched this and I was like... And I'm going to be completely honest. This is one of the series where I was going to another series. Because one of those things, if you go to the actual series, there's like... Oh, here's all the episodes similar to this, and this came up to one of the other series I've watched. I'm like, do you know what? Why not watch it? Seems fun, it seems like a good time. So why don't I watch it? See what I think, see what I like. So I did that. I watched it. And it's awesome. It's amazing. And I absolutely like it. Yeah, I am also looking for the thoughts. TH, no, that's besides the point. I think this is really interesting as a TV series. Because the stuff about, like, trying to, like, create the crime, to get rid of the lords and ladies, to get this more, like, improved system in. Is really interesting in that way. Because it makes sense. Being like, so many people take advantage of their status, of their power, that we're going to come in and we're going to be like, no, this is why, this is the life that's coming to crimes and this and that. And obviously, I am going to say, I have watched BBC Sherlock. I've also done a full review and a combo video on Elementary, which is Sherlock if he went to America. I haven't reviewed it at all, but I've also watched the two films that was Sherlock and Games of Shadows, which again, I love. So, I've seen 3 interpretations of Moriarty. Also, if you're curious about which is my top to my least favorite Moriarty, the BBC one would be in the middle. Elementary, I think, would be number 2, with I think number 3 being the one from... Not because it's not bad, it's just fine. The BBC one, I'm not the biggest fan. He's just crazy, and sort of like does this sort of Joker like, well, I'm gonna see you later, and like fully looks nuts when I think he's meant to be like a criminal genius. He sort of looks like, well, I played this game because you seem fun. Like, okay. I also think the one Elementary with the twist there, I'm not gonna mention it, if you know, you know, I also like. But this, I think, is my favourite interpretation of Moriarty. Alongside my favourite interpretation of all the other characters. Because you do see, I think, some of the main characters. You see, I think, Watson and then his wife, who comes in later. You do see the people who are in Sherlock's home, like his brother, his landlord. You do see that. And I think you also see the 2 detectives alongside the other side. And some of the episodes, I'm going to 100% say that I think some of the episodes, especially, there's one in a train, and the whole story is about the train, and the situation in the train about this murder, and you have the 2 detectives sort of detecting, including like, oh, how they were actually able to pin it down to these people. And it's really interesting, and I think really I enjoy it so much. The other one is how they sort of first introduced Moriarty. He's sort of doing this thing about like, oh yeah, I can do this, trust me. And doing this all, I think it's probably like another trick that like actual detectives could do, which is like look at someone and it's like, this and this, that must mean you do this job. And I love how they do that with the sort of like you're a professor in mathematics. You do this because it was like looking at a spiral, but looking at like the curve and like the golden ratio. Weirdly enough, I might have like nowadays. I think like spiral staircases I think are so common that I wouldn't really look at that. But if I back then in Victorian England where like spirals are a little more uncommon, I might look at the spiral because I like the golden ratio. I'm not going to say I'm a professor. I just like the golden ratio. That's just my thing. I just love it. But I just love how they first meet, how they first introduce, and definitely when you have someone, I forget his name, I forget her name, John's wife. What is it? Sherlock. John's wife. I think it's Mary as well. Yeah, Mary Watson, also known as is Mary Elizabeth Watson, formerly known as Mary Elizabeth Watson Morstan. So Mary gets blackmailed for being part of this like revolutionary thing. It's a long story, but I like when they finally meet the blackmailer. They both have guns with Sherlock and Moriarty facing each other, and then they're like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna face it to you." And it's like, "What the?" It's like, you two know each other? Because they only showed it once, and the only four people there were the three Moriartys, because it's three of them, and that I love as a dynamic. And Sherlock himself, also a lot of the things are two-parters, which I also love. I also love a couple of the name drops. They have a whole thing of Jack the Ripper, which they have a fake and a real one. That's done by the sort of like people who are doing blackmail. You have the whole thing with, because Sherlock has usually this character of this sort of like Phoebe character, I forget her name, but the one thing I love is when they give a fake name, it's James Bond, and that's hilarious. You kind of get used to it after a while, but it's the first idea that you have to think that in a certain way, because it still like looks male. They should do the whole thing of like a female dressing up as a male. That is the whole point of this. But it's technically the first female James Bond, which is in this series. This anime can beat James Bond for having a first female one. That will be a first, and actually probably never will actually be in James Bond. But the other thing I love is at the end, they all have sort of punishment. One pretends to be dead and then writes a book about how he's absolutely horrible. One is like, do you know what? We know what you did. I think the other one also gets a bit of pushback. But one of the brothers is like, do you know what? I'm going to honor this by making a group. And I'm going to call it MI6. I'm like, you already have James Bond. Stop trying to push the limit of how much you can get away with. I'll be questioning it. I hope I put my hand on heart and hand up high that the same people who made this an anime, written this, if it was a manga, the same manga writer wrote an MI6 James Bond anime thing. I don't think they're possibly going to that because of copyright issues, but I would love that. Please, for the love of God, when James Bond becomes a character that you can put in the public domain, make a James Bond continuation of this. That will be good. I think it would be an amazing series, and I'll love what they can do with it, because Sherlock still exists, but he's dead. So you have Watson, you have the other two Moriartys. What can you do with this? I love the possibilities. I want it so bad. I don't know who else does, but I want it badly. So yeah, I love the series. I think me literally going off the rockers, not rockers, but going off the absolute deep end and probably blowing everyone who's watching this on stream would get that. So yeah, I recommend the series. I hope you enjoy, and good night!